Russell freaking Henley taking down the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Comeback victory over Colin Morikawa in that one. Now heading to a course where it actually sets it pretty well for Henley once again. It is the Players' Championship, $4.5 million on the line this week. We're going to break down our thoughts on that event from a betting and DFS perspective, letting you know which golfers we are keying in on FanDuel for this week. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is Jim Sannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I usually say every Tuesday, but it's Monday, recording early for the players for this week. It's Brandon Gdula. He is a senior managing editor for FanDuel Research. Check him out on X at Gdula13 if X is still up. You can find him on Blue Sky at Gdula as well. Brandon, Russell Henley getting the job done. We both bet him to win in that event. He was my win pick, so sorry about that. I know you had Morikawa and Henley though, so I feel like Sunday actually pretty stress-free for you. How you doing?
Well, I wouldn't say stress-free. Corey Connors had me sweating. Jason Day was making a run. Looked like he was making everything he was looking at till the mud ball got him. But Colin just couldn't make any putts, which is kind of Colin Morikawa in a nutshell a little bit. But even though you beat me in our win picks, can't complain too much. Not only because, we were there for Russell Henley, but we're big Russell Henley guys at this point. And I don't know. It was interesting. Didn't get to see the full shot. I'm not the first one to say this for his chip in eagle, but yeah, you would think it'd be stress, but there was still some stress.
Yeah. It's less stressful for you than most. Like for me, as someone who didn't have a Morikawa ticket, I had just a Henley ticket. I kind of gave up, honestly. Once Morikawa is up 3 shots entering the 13th or 14th hole, I was like, okay, well, could have cashed up the Henley ticket this morning. Didn't, because it wasn't a plus EV offer that I was getting. I was like, okay, whatever. A little missed opportunity, but it's fine. So I got the top 10 bet and stuff like that. So I guess maybe less stressful for me until things started to look better. If you were someone who had a Morikawa only ticket, very stressful there. So at least you had the luxury of it being mostly those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I was sweating too much, but I've had 1 and 2 going into the back 9 and not have it go my way in the past. So I don't really want to get ahead of myself. But honestly, it's been a while for Morikawa. I hope he can get back on track. Maybe it's as soon as this week at a course that should suit him well. But look, I love watching golf, and the signature events are great. This is historically for the players the best field in golf. I just like whenever there's some narratives going on. It just feels different. Yeah. Even though Colin Morikawa was leading, I think he was up 3 shots entering the back 9, but don't quote me on that. But it still was like, I want to see Colin Morikawa kind of close this out because he's a star and he's great. It's a little different in weaker fields. It's not really, I know it sounds like shade or something, but it just feels different. And now this week when we have so many golfers in really good form, but a lot of volatility because of this course, it's hard not to be excited.
Yeah. I'm excited to see this field. I'm excited to see TPC Sawgrass. I'll be out there tomorrow, Tuesday, doing some stuff for old FanDuel.com, and excited to get to see 17, which you wrote a piece about over on FanDuel Research today. So going to be a really fun week for us here on the show. I made the mistake like 17 times of saying, hey, this week we're in Mexico, or hey, this week we're in San Diego. This week I literally am in outside of Jacksonville for the Players Championship. It'll be fun. I think it's going to be a fun field. It's a really fun event in general because of volatility, and like that can lead to like some long shot winners, but there are long shot winners who are still like fun stars, I guess is what I would say, or guys who have like some household name equity. So even though it's like a volatile event and it could be a guy's like a long shot winner, I don't think we'll get a no-name winner this weekend, given how good and deep this field is.
Yeah, I think, you're going to see some surprises unless Scotty just goes out and wins it again. But what I also like is you kind of get like the putting element we'll talk about here, like what matters, but the putting element's not as elevated as it can be. As I say, like, and look, everyone knows who's ever listened to this show. I watch sports on DVR. I don't find any fault in that. I would rather save my time and not be on social media tweeting my reactions or seeing the live reactions. Just doesn't motivate me necessarily.
Yeah.
But as I'm DVRing stuff, catching up for Bay Hill this past weekend, I pause it on the putts. I pause it on the bunker shots. I pause it on the approach shots. I never watch any drives. I see if they're in a bad position, I'll figure that out on the approach.
Yeah.
So I still love the putting. I love seeing putts drop, but whenever it comes to breaking things down and looking at the event, it's nice whenever the sort of better, more consistent tee to green guys are the ones who are going to float to the top of who we're talking about a lot.
And we'll talk about those guys throughout the show for today. Potentially a lot of the guys we discussed in last week's show as well, popping up here for the players. We're going to dive on into the players, break down what you got to know about TPC Sawgrass, all of its weird intricacies, break down this field, who is entering the best form and the best course history. If good course history at TPC Sawgrass exists outside of Scotty Scheffler, then we'll dive into our betting picks and DFS plays for this week as well. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review. We're with you every Tuesday breaking down that week's PGA Tour event. Also, brand new YouTube channel, the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. Go there, turn on notifications, leave us a thumbs up. We appreciate those of you who've done so already. And make sure to subscribe to the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page for breakdowns of each week's PGA Tour event as well. One of the best parts about the tourney is when an underdog takes down a powerhouse. And right now, those upsets can get even better because all this week on FanDuel, if your underdog bet wins, you'll end even more winnings with a profit boost. This is your chance to ride with the long shots, the scrappy teams, and the ones that refuse to go quietly. If you've been waiting to join FanDuel, there is no better time. The app is easy to use, and when you win, you'll get paid instantly. Visit America's #1 sportsbook today and back your dog of the day with a profit boost. Russell Henley, always my dog of the day, even if he doesn't qualify for this promo, because after all, anything can happen in March, including Russell Henley winning $4 million. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. Opt-in required. Wager of at least plus 100 odds required. Bonus issued as knowledgeable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit CCP. PG.org, Service Gambling Helpline MA.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look here at TPC Sawgrass, the host of this week's The Players Championship. It is the stadium course there, 7,352 yards in a par 72. They have added some yardage to this course, 77 extra yards added to the course since last year's event. There are 144 golfers in the field. The top 65 plus ties make the cut after the first 2 rounds. Now, Brandon, part of the volatility of this event is that it is 144 golfers. So that's always going to make things a bit tougher to predict. But also, TPC Sawgrass, kind of a unique beast. So what should people know about this course before filling out bet slips or DFS lineups for this week?
Yeah, trouble looms all over TPC Sawgrass. We think about it probably most on the Island Green, number 17, but there's water all over the place. 17 of 18 holes, there's water in play, and we also see tighter fairways than average, slightly smaller greens than average. So, it's not that you're going to make massive numbers unless you're in the water. But it's not the kind of course where you can just plod your way and kind of never give yourself looks and just be okay. Like you have to be aggressive, but you also have to be precise. So it really is a complete test of golf. But you mentioned that sort of added distance. It's still about average in terms of length for a par 72. But again, we're dealing with narrow fairways with penalizing rough if you do miss. And again, the water, in terms of the average green size, just slightly smaller than average on the PGA Tour, 5,500 square feet on average. PGA Tour average just slightly above 6,000. So, not tiny, but again, average, slightly small. That's kind of what we're dealing with. The greens themselves are POA overseed with Bermuda grass. And whenever you kind of go back into that, okay, winning score situation, again, not going to make a ton of birdies, but you have to be able to score when you can. You have to avoid big numbers. Winning scores of late, 20 under, 17 under, 13, 14, and 16 under par over the last 5 full events. Caveat last 5, that's the term I like to look at. 5 years ago, this thing was postponed and canceled after round 1, so that's 16 under in 2019. But let's keep digging in to the course itself. You just see the more accurate, precise ball strikers getting rewarded. Going back to, again, there's danger looming, not just in terms of the water, but in terms of missing fairways. And each of the last 5 winners were 7th or better in strokes gained approach for the week. Scotty Scheffler's won here twice straight by hitting a ton of fairways and then getting greens in regulation from the fairway, ranking top 3 in greens in regulation each of his last 2 wins. His tee to green game was so good that he won despite like really modest putting in basically both of his years. But you can say that again for Justin Thomas in 21, Rory in 2019, Siwoo Kim in 2017. Now, you can kind of stop that narrative completely and say, well, Cam Smith won with one of the better putting rounds we've seen or putting weekends we've seen really in the ShotLink era. He basically averaged he averaged 2.88 strokes gained per round putting according to Data Golf during his win. 2.88 is at roughly like a 96th percentile sort of, over a full event. Like it was kind of absurd. Webb Simpson did it similarly. So basically, unless you have an outlierishly good putting performance for sustained for 4 straight days, you got to hit fairways, you got to get greens in regulation, and you can't be making bad mistakes, tee to green. So really this one rewards tee to green performance because it's just sort of average, a little bit short with the layups, some shorter par 3s as well. You can look at proximity under 150 yards. But for me, realistically, the key stats are strokes gained approach, strokes gained off the tee with an emphasis on driving accuracy, and yes, some putting. Even though we want to see some great ball striking and tee to green numbers, you still got to make your putts. And if you're going to have a hard time winning if you are really losing on the greens, unless you just kind of elevate like Scotty can.
Yeah, and the number of guys who can do that is small. The number of guys who can pull a Scotty in that regard is not super expansive. Now, that's the way things break down from like a data perspective. But as mentioned, it's a volatile course, and that volatility does play a pretty big role both for betting and for daily fantasy. So, from an approach perspective, Brandon, how do you alter your process this week, knowing that pinning down the winner can be kind of tough with so many guys missing the cut and with a large number of golfers in play, with accuracy being more important than distance this week?
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of a risk tolerance sort of situation whenever you ask yourself what to look for and where you want to go. The easiest way to think about it is from a daily fantasy standpoint, though, where, okay, there's volatility, guys can miss the cut. Do you just avoid Scotty Scheffler and hope that he misses the cut? There's a little more to it than that. But you're also kind of seeing in the betting markets, Scotty's 4-1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. Rory's 10-1, Morikawa 12-1. But outside of that, you're getting kind of good numbers on a lot of names. If you just not necessarily just from a value standpoint, because I'm not saying every name beyond that is a value, but really what you're getting and what you're unlocking is some nice names at numbers that are longer. So from a betting standpoint, I do feel like it's pretty factored in. And just spoiler alert, I'm not going to be able to get there myself with Scotty at 4-1. Rory has won here in the past, but he's not someone I'm going out of my way necessarily to target. So it matters a little bit, but it depends also on the type of contest you're talking about.
So let's talk some course history, Brandon. When you look at the list of golfers with plus history, in addition to Scotty Scheffler, who else stands out to you?
So other than Scotty, the best numbers actually kind of belong to Brian Harmon, who was runner-up here last year, along with Xander Schauffele and Wyndham Clark. But if you look at Harmon in particular, dating back, T2 last year, T44, T63, T3, and then if you want to dig back into 2019, a T8 for Harmon. I don't love what I see from Harmon, but he's still an accurate driver, and his irons are actually pretty good right now. He's been 17th at the Genesis and 25th at the WM Phoenix Open. I don't think that it's the worst case for Harmon this week, but for me personally, I kind of prefer some other names. But if you want to elevate somebody for having really strong form here, again, it's pretty rare to find consistently, but he does have that. So I think that he deserves a lot of attention. But the next name on my list, and it'll depend on kind of how you look at things to clarify here. I'm just looking at the last 4 starts because I don't want to dig back 6 years ago, and I'm not factoring in the one round from 2020. But Shane Lowry's next up on the list for me. Looked like he might have run away with the API, but didn't. Ended up finishing 7th with another strong iron week and a good putting week for him. But his last 4 finishes here at Sawgrass have been 19th, 35th, 13th, and 8th, all with great strokes gained approach numbers. Next up on the list for me is Hideki, who basically, I know a lot of people kind of crown him for he was going to go on to win in 2020, but I'm not factoring that in at all. But Hideki, of course, playing some good golf in 2025 overall. Even though he's doing a lot of that with the wedge play, his irons are kind of down and his accuracy is not great. But 6th last year, 5th, missed the cut, and then 8th in 2019. Great form overall for Hideki in 9 full events. He's got 4 top 10s at Sawgrass, 7 top 25s, and 2 missed cuts. So kind of shout out to Hideki of late for playing some good golf, but also long-term playing good golf at Sawgrass. Moving on, I got Siwoo Kim next, and this does cut off his 2017 win, but T9 withdraw, T27, and T6 here, the last 4. Corey Connors, 13th last year, cut 26th and 7th. Matt Fitzpatrick, boy, kind of a fall from grace for Fitz right now, but 5th and a 9th, which is, those are bookending 2 missed cuts in 2022 and 2023, which, yes, he's pretty high up on the list, but this includes 2 missed cuts, which kind of speaks to the volatility that you'll see at Sawgrass in terms of overall form. Digging back beyond that, not necessarily the best form for Fitz. He was 22nd at API this past week, but lost a bunch with the ball striking and just really putted well. So I'm not necessarily wanting to chase that. I don't know if anything else kind of sums this up better than seeing someone like a Tom Hoagie kind of make this list with finishes of 22nd, 33rd, 3rd, and 54th. You just see missed cuts for golfers too much and sort of bogging things down. And then Sungjae Im, 2 top 20s here the last 4 years. He's really accurate off the tee. The irons themselves, not particularly great of late, but I mean, it's basically negative for him in the ball striking department outside of a good event there in the approach department at the Cognizant Classic. but outside of that, it's not ideal for Sungjae. So I don't know. If you want to look at course history, I get it. This week, it's really fluky. And you just kind of see golfers going from missed cuts to great performances and great performances to missed cuts. So that kind of speaks to the volatility that we were talking about, which again, game theory wise, DFS standpoint, I feel like makes a ton of sense to be receptive to the fact that a water ball or two it's going to be the end of it for certain golfers. But from a betting standpoint, I still think there's good enough numbers on a lot of names that I'm not just looking to bet long shots and hope that something wild happens. That's not really the way that I'm playing it this week.
Let's talk about Scotty at the top, because as mentioned, course history is very good. Is 1 year back-to-back times. You said you're not betting him, and I agree with that. DFS perspective, Scotty's salary is $13,000. How are you handling him in that specific game type where we want to account for volatility? We want to avoid guys who could torpedo rosters at high roster rates, but also it's Scotty freaking Scheffler. And if anyone can buck volatility, it's going to be him. So how do you handle him for DFS specifically?
In like head-to-heads and cash games,
both. Give me all formats here.
No, I'm laying it out. Head-to-heads and cash games, I'm playing him. Okay. He's going to be in my head-to-head against you because I see enough value really in the 7K range to 8K range to get there with Scotty plus other studs. From a tournament standpoint, that is where you kind of ask the question. He is going to be very popular. He would be a lot more popular if he putted well at all last week at Bay Hill, but he did not. And then you ask the question, okay, in the event Scotty misses the cut, which is not super likely, you have a huge leg up in tournaments. If Scotty's 15th, you have a huge leg up in tournaments if you avoid him. I still like him in tournaments. I don't know where he's going to wind up in terms of roster rate. The kind of strange thing is we got salaries early this week on FanDuel. So last week's winner, Russell Henley, potentially a little undersalaried. Colin Morikawa, a little potentially undersalaried. You have some value names that I think people would be okay with if it meant playing Scotty and potentially Rory or whoever else your preference is. So I do think Scotty's going to be quite popular. That's not enough for me to want to full fade and just hope that he misses the cut. I don't see that that's going to happen, but I do think you need to be receptive. And if you're playing a single entry lineup, you're literally asking yourself, do I think Scotty wins? If yes, play him and figure it out from there. If you're playing him in a tournament, hoping that he finishes top 10, probably consider mixing it up and hope that he does a little bit worse than that. That's kind of where I am with him. It's a very difficult conversation. It's one that we need to have. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the volatility of the players is pretty brutal. And there's no way around that.
Yeah. And you were saying if you assume he wins in a tournament, his betting odds at FanDuel Sportsbook are 4-1. That's about that's 20% implied odds. So FanDuel is saying, without accounting for hold and stuff like that, he wins 20% of the time. That's lower than typical Scotty Scheffler. He was plus 320 last week. So it's a downward adjustment for sure. And we need to account for that as well. Let's talk current form, because you always pull the past 3 months of data at Data Golf. Look at the guys who have done the best in that time. Number one, the past 3 months is not Scotty Scheffler. So Brandon, tell me who is number one right now entering the players and who else stands out there.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been since this hasn't been Scotty, but right now it is Colin Morikawa. And this is a field strength adjusted strokes gained per round numbers, according to Data Golf's True Strokes Gained Query, which you can check out. Even if you're not a member, I highly recommend it. It's a great sort of tool to get you up to speed on different preset ranges. You know, you can kind of look at some different things, click in, get a readout on certain golfers. But yeah, Colin Morikawa, he's at a 2.94, which is pretty absurd to think about. And Rory McIlroy is actually second. It's not Scotty. Rory's at a 2.65. Then it's Scotty Scheffler at a 2.43, which is really hard to think about because his performances have been so good. But you're starting to see some of that, you know, the Tour Championship, the Hero World Challenge just spikes. the Olympics. Like this stuff is not in any of the data anymore. And for him, I mean, his 2025 started at Pebble where he was T9, T25 in Phoenix, T3 at Genesis, and T11 at API. That's great for everybody who's not Scotty. And I don't want to like undercut it or anything. He's third in this field. He lost over a shot per round on the greens at API, but his ball striking has been fine. Like his iron numbers have been fine, but not really on the level that he was when he was gaining literally 2+ shots per round on average in a lot of his events. His last three have been 0.45, 0.91, and 0.69. So Scotty's in third here at a 2.43, looking a little bit human. But then there's only two other names at a 2.0.
The funny thing, though, is he's looking human, but he also led the field in strokes gained off the tee last week.
He did. He was
it's
hyper
like,
accurate.
That's the human version of him, which is absurd.
Yeah, he was really accurate. Want to see here. Scheffler. Yeah, second in accuracy and fourth in distance, which is not a combo you get very often, but that's been his recipe for success at Sawgrass is he's able to hit it far and straight. I know that distance is a massive talking point. That's not lost on me at all. But the fact that he's able to hit it far and straight is the differentiator. And if his irons come back, he is able to win this thing with neutral putting, which is basically what he's done each of the last 2 years. So it's pretty crazy to think about and see right now. But honestly, it still feels like Scotty's the guy, even though these 3-month numbers don't say that. So I think the big takeaway here is that Morikawa is number one over Rory. But Rory's also one here. Morikawa's kind of been iffy at Sawgrass. And he also, if you were watching, invested in Morikawa this past week, which I was, it didn't inspire a lot of confidence with how he hit some of his putts and the way he reacted right away. It looked a little too much like me out there, which I didn't care for.
For sure, which is why if you're looking at the betting odds right now, Morikawa is shortened. He is, I think, 12-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. That's not an area that I want to get to personally, but when he was 16, 14, I think that made sense. I think that the betting markets have caught up. I don't think the DFS market has caught up. So Morikawa for me, DFS play for sure. A bet at 16-1 or at 12-1, not as much there. I think that DFS is the way to get exposure to Morikawa this week.
I like that as well.
Okay, who else is noteworthy current form right now?
So thanks for pausing me as I was rolling through, talking about the two other names who are gaining at least 2.0 shots per round over the last 3 months. I think we did need to pause and talk Scotty, but also cracking the 2.0 number. Two guys we've talked about a lot, I would say, compared to what their like name value is, which is not a pat on the back, just kind of a, hey, take note of this in a volatile event, maybe. But Russell Henley, who picked up the win at API, took a little bit of a house call to Dr. Chipinski, of course, but overall, I mean, you don't just win API because you chipped in for Eagle. That's not really the case. His salary is $10,400, but really where I like to dig in here is the names with salaries of $10,000 or lower on FanDuel, and that puts me right at Sepp Straka, whose salary is $10,000. He is right at 2.00. So Mr. Cutoff himself, Sepp Straka. But T5 at API, T11 at the Cognizant Classic. Did miss the cut at the Genesis, but 15th in Phoenix, 7th at Pebble since winning the American Express in January. He has gained at least 1.0 shots per round from approach in 10 of his last 11 measured starts. And he's been top 16 here at Sawgrass in 2 of the last 3 years. So Sepp Straka, not going to lie, you talked about like, hey, having a kind of easy, finish to things. When Sepp Straka gets going and you're not there on him, you kind of feel it. He feels like one of those guys who can just step on your neck, probably because he's done it to me in the past. But shout out to Sepp. I think he's a really interesting play this week at 10,000.
I think he's an interesting bet this week too. Little spoiler alert there.
I don't mind that at all. But also another name I was tracking pretty closely here was Michael Kim last week. His salary is $7,700. I don't think that accounts for how good he has been lately. He's at a 1.61 true strokes gained per round over the last 3 months. And that actually ranks him 11th overall in this field. It's not just like, oh, he's one of the better guys with a low salary. He's 11th in the field over the last 3 months. And if you take a closer look, it's all been good. Like every part of his game has been good. He's finished top 13 in 5 straight events while gaining in 19 of 20 strokes gained areas. So if you look at a grid, off the tee approach, around the green putting, 4 stats per event, positive in 19 to 20 of those. And that's from Data Golf, which adjusts for field strength. Raw numbers, he's 20 for 20. So take that for what it's worth. And he, because he just barely lost in Mexico just because it was a weaker field off the tee. It's pretty insane. He's played Sawgrass once since 2019, missing the cut last year, but made the cut back in 2017. Don't think you can really look at the form for Michael Kim years ago and compare him to how he's golfing right now. He is one of my favorite DFS plays. Not saying it's a slam dunk or anything like that, but the form right now is not indicative of a $7,700 salary. So Michael Kim, he's been your guy in the past. He's now our guy because I'm there with Michael Kim for sure. Another name we've been tracking is Daniel Berger. His salary is $9,700. He's at a 1.55. He's got 4 straight top 25 finishes with positive strokes gained in all 16 areas in that span. So same thing I did with Michael Kim. So no issues there. Bounced back after a 78 in round 1 to open up the Arnold Palmer Invitational to finish T15. So you love to see that grind. He's been through the ringer of late. Could have easily packed it in, did not do that, fought his way back to a top 15, and he's finished top 13 in 2 straight Players Championships as well. A couple other names to round things out. JJ Spawn, salary is $8,800. He's at a 1.47. He's got 7 straight top 35s. He's been gaining an approach with all of them, but not a good Sawgrass player. Take that for what it's worth. I think he's a fine, interesting play, but not necessarily someone I'm clamoring to build around. But you also have Justin Rose at 8,500. He's just a tick behind Spawn at a 1.46 true strokes gained per round. He's more hot and cold, honestly, which could be good, could be bad. That's the chance with Justin Rose right now. But he can spike with the irons and the putter. So that means upside. It also means downside. Take that for what it's worth. Definitely not a cash game play. As a preference, you might need to get there. I understand that. But a better tournament play from DFS standpoint. Nick Taylor, 8,600. He's at a 1.42. Coming out pretty hot in 2025 after a pretty bad or forgettable summer and fall. Won the Sony, 12th at AMX, 33rd at Pebble, 25th in Phoenix, 9th at Genesis, 31st at API with hot irons in every single one of them, and he's usually an accurate driver. Nick Taylor, one of my favorite value plays this week. Alex Smalley, also at 7,700. He's at a 1.42 as well. Top 21 and 5 of 6 starts in 2025. Missed the cut at the Farmers with terrible putting, but hot irons. So if you're going to miss a cut, statistically, that's the way you want to do it. Just not have the putts fall, but light it up with the irons. At least from our perspective, data-wise, I'm sure it hurts all the same. It might hurt even more if you're just not making putts and hitting it good as a pro golfer. But rounding out the list here, Keegan Bradley, 9,900. Jason Day, 9,800. Right around that 10K range, just below that cutoff, around a 1.4 strokes gained per round. Aaron Rye, though, back on the menu. We're definitely Rye guys, and he's kind of back right now. 8,800 is the salary. T4 at Mexico, T11 at the API with good iron play again. We know he's accurate. And 2 more names here to finish things out. Your guy in the F. McNeely, 9,700, kind of put him in that Day Keegan tier. But then we have Laurie Cantor, 7,400. Probably going to hear his name a little bit for different reasons. If you're listening to other forms of pre-players media or reading articles, played the Live Tour in 2023. So there's an angle here. He's the first guy eligible for the players who played in Live. Won the European Open back in June. on the DP World Tour. And in 2025, he's finished third at the Hero Dubai Desert Classic, one in Bahrain, T35 at the Qatar Masters, and second at the South African Open. Just a $7,400 price tag to roster Cantor. I think that he's going to get a little bit of buzz, but not a big enough name to be someone I think you got to avoid from when you're building FanDuel lineups from a tournament standpoint. But a lot of ways to go here. Who jumps out to you? Who do you want to talk about more?
Well, I think it's interesting that there are three guys in this list in Michael Kim, Alex Smalley, and Laurie Cantor who have salaries in the 7K range, kind of backing up what we were saying, where there are options down there. Do you have a preference between those guys as far as who you'd want to turn to first if you decide to get a bit top heavy this week?
Michael Kim.
Yeah.
It's so consistent, and he's done it in different types of events on the PGA Tour. It just feels a little more sustainable because he's gaining everywhere, and you love to see that. Of course, you love to see the specialists and everything, but you really like to see positives across the board. And, Smalley's been good in most areas, but the irons are not nearly as good right now, is what you get with Michael Kim. And then Cantor, it's more of a transition from where he's been doing this to a big event like the Players. It's not that I think we kind of need to hesitate in any form or fashion with that. Again, not like get out over our skis and play him in every lineup. But frankly, if I'm comparing the three, it's Michael Kim, and it's really not a conversation.
And I think Kim is very likely to be in my main lineup for this week, if I had to guess, just because the salary is so low and the production has been so high recently. Weather for this week at the Players, wind won't be too high on Thursday or Friday. Will be lower earlier in the day each day. The highest winds will be late Friday. So I would give a slight edge to golfers with earlier Friday tee times, which means later Thursday, but nothing too crazy there. And then there will be higher winds on Saturday and Sunday in the 15 to 20 mile per hour range. So scoring should be a bit tougher on Saturday, Sunday. Chance of rain on Sunday as well to potentially toss in some factors there. So slight edge to golfers with earlier tee times Friday, later Thursday, and then some potentially tougher scoring conditions across the weekend. Let's dig in now to the betting section here, talk about some bets we like at FanDuel Sportsbook for the Players Championship. Brandon, let's begin things with outrights. And you look at the outright odds of FanDuel Sportsbook. Which golfers stand out to you there?
Well, we saw two guys in contention who haven't won in a while on the PGA Tour. And one of them, of course, because only one guy can win, was able to do it. So why not go with someone who's never won on the PGA Tour, right? I mean, let's keep that train going. But for me, I really like Tommy Fleetwood this week. He has shortened from where I liked him initially, from 33 to 1 to plus 3,000 on FanDuel. But look, he can win golf events. He's got 7 wins on the DP World Tour in his career. He's a top 10 golfer in the world, either by the Data Golf rankings or the official World Golf rankings. But if you look at Fleetwood and what he's doing, and you're asking someone, can you gain in all 4 areas? That's kind of, he's got 3 of them on lock. The putter is just the one that's not always there. He's most consistently gaining with his approach play, which is where you want to start. He's gaining off the tee by being able to be long and accurate at the same time. He's a good wedge player, a good, chipper. It's just whether that putting can kind of get him there. But if there's a week where you can be okay with a great tee to green golfer who isn't going to be reliant on the putter, it's kind of Sawgrass in a lot of ways. And he's gained fairways on the field in 7 straight measured events. The last time Fleetwood's lost stroke from approach play was back in July at the Open. He's got 13 straight measured events with positive approach play then. He's finished top 22 in each of those last 13 starts. And frankly, the form at Sawgrass, pretty good overall. He's got 2 top 10 finishes. Yeah, those were back in 2019, 2018. But 3 straight made cuts. And I don't know. I think if you're kind of pointing to Fleetwood really breaking through, I feel like it's a course where you need to be accurate. and stripe the irons. There's a little bit of a de-emphasis on putting. Scotty right now looks a little more mortal than he has. Rory seems kind of similar to Scotty right now, where you're just nitpicking, but he doesn't look like he's going to go out there and I know I've said this before, but like step on anyone's neck to go out and get the win. Morikawa, I think, looks a little bit. He looked a little shook up. I think that the moment just got away from him. He's got to bounce back from that. It's not that I think he can't go out and win. I actually like him a lot this week, just not at 12-1. Xander's probably not himself right now. Like, why not Tommy? I see value at 30-1. Come on, lad, let's do it.
It is a long number, so I understand that. I think that my hesitation with Fleetwood is that there are some guys in that range who I like more, one of whom we'll talk about in a second. So it's not like, an either or situation. It could be a Porque no los dos situation where you take both those guys, but
there's three names in that range. It's Fleetwood at 30, Hideki
I'm
at
looking
33.
Longer though, longer.
Okay. Like Lowry or Cantlay at 40.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call it the same tier. I guess I get it, but
I'd rather have Lowry at 40, I think, than
that's
Cantlay at 30. Is that egregious? Are you were really fast to disagree?
I think I like Shane Lowry. But if you want the ball striking, I think to me, and Lowry's a phenomenal ball striker, but to me it's Fleetwood. But that's just me.
If we could do a bet, we just do head-to-head bets, so there's no give me plus 130 or something like that. But I wish we could do a head-to-head and account for the tier gap between those two guys. They're I don't want to make up odds on the fly, but I'd rather have Lowry at the discounted number than Fleetwood personally.
I get it. But to me, Fleetwood he's the second most consistent ball striker behind Scotty over the last 50 rounds.
I want the volatility with him, though. I want him to be more volatile. I know that he can't
got a volatile putter.
Yeah. And
so does Lowry, though. Lowry's all over the place with the putter, usually.
In Fleetwood's defense, he's had positive volatility with the irons recently, at the Genesis 1.61 strokes per round on approach per day to golf. That's good. That's what I want. I just need the reason we got on Xander last year for the major run was because he was increasing his volatility in a good way. I want less consistency, more volatility from Fleetwood before I start to buy in. That's kind of what I'm looking for first.
I get it.
Okay. So we don't agree on Fleetwood. I do think we agree on your second guy, though. So talk me through the other outright name you're looking at right now.
Let's go Russ again. You called him a dog. I thought you were going to say it's because he went to Georgia, but that's not where you went with it. That's fine. It might be asking a lot for Henley. I get it. It's not chasing for anybody who listens to this show. They're probably sick of hearing Russell Henley's name. So it's the opposite of chasing. It's more is this the breakthrough for him? And it might be. He went out and took that thing. You mentioned a little stress-free. I know I've referenced this a couple of times, but for so many reasons it was not stress-free. And one of them was Henley looked like he was kind of just fall out of contention early on. He did not look like he was up to the task. And he hung around. He hold that eagle. Yeah, and that's what it takes to win a golf tournament. If he missed that thing, it's going off the green. Morikawa was winning by multiple shots. Whatever. That's not what happened. You need things to go your way. And what happened with Xander last year, the way you get things to go your way is you're in contention long enough. Same thing's going to happen for Morikawa. He's probably going to win 2 in quick succession, but why not Henley? There's no reason he can't do it a second time, especially at a course that in theory suits him a lot better than where he won last week, where it was a little more distance heavy. You need accuracy, you need irons. That's what Henley does. You need to save par. You need to make birdies when you can. Russell Henley can do that. 35-1 for Henley. I'm there. He is one of 3 golfers in the field over the last 50 rounds to rank top 20 in strokes gained tee to green and putting. The other 2 names are Rory and Xander. He's a lot better golfer than people realize. We kind of saw that at Arnold Palmer. but he can do it again. He's so consistently good. He's gained putting in 21 of his last 25 events, approach in 22 of those 25, and fairways in 23 of 25. You don't just look at a golfer and say, well, he won last week, so he can't do it again. Scotty does it all the time. He did it last year entering the Players. No, Russell Henley's not Scotty Scheffler, but Russell Henley's a lot better golfer than I think people realize for a long time, and 35-1 is still a good number.
And also, we're not paying a massive tax to bet Henley this week. He's 35-1. Yes, he was 44 when we recorded last week, so it is shorter, but also part of that's because it is a more volatile event. So the win equity up top for Scotty Scheffler plus Rory McIlroy is a lot lower this week, where Scheffler was plus 320, McIlroy plus 750, and now McIlroy is 11-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. So like you free up win equity at the top, and Henley can take up some of that. He was undervalued in our eyes last week at 44-1. So I don't think that 35 is a bad number. I don't think we're like chasing, like you said. I think it's kind of just like understanding that this is a very good course fit for him at a spot where distance doesn't matter as much. The irons are insane and he can put the lights out. That's how you get upside. That's how you get volatility that we're looking for. And Henley checks all those boxes. So yeah, it's weird for a guy to go back to back. It'd be very weird for the golfer who won the Arnold Palmer to win the Players in 2 consecutive years. But also, like, I don't want to look at that outside stuff. I want to look at the number. And to me, Russell Henley 35-1 is a good number for this week. So I'm going to take it.
Yeah, and you talked about that volatility, wanting that. If you look at the last 50 rounds, you take a golfer's average strokes gained per round with field strength adjustments according to Data Golf. You look at their standard deviation, and you kind of get like a 68% of like his rounds will kind of fall into this tier. Scheffler's number 1 at a 5.1. Xander is a 4.9. Ludwig is a 4.7. Justin Thomas is a 4.6. And also a 4.6 is Russell Henley. So he's basically got the 5th biggest ceiling right now in this field. It's bigger than Rory's. I won't say other names. I won't say where Tommy Fleetwood is because it's not nearly as high as you'd want it to be. But Henley, again, we've kind of said it for years. He's just a better golfer than, and it's not to say, oh, this is egregious. He should be, 20-1 now. He beat Colin, so he should be 12-1. Colin should be 35. It's not like that.
Yeah.
But what you're asking him to do this week is basically what he does at his best. So, I mean, I don't see why he can't do it.
Yeah. I very much agree with you. So your 2 outrights are Tommy Fleetwood 30 and Russell Henley 35. I am with you on Henley at 35 as well. Other outright for me is a guy we discussed earlier on, Seth Straka, 55-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Also do like him to finish top 10 at plus 450, but Straka's a good course fit with good course history and really good current form right now. He was 9th here in 2022, 16th last year. He is a guy who is very accurate off the tee, well above average there, and also finished 5th last week. So in that tough field, finished 5th there. And he's now been in the top 5 in 4 of his 8 events since Thanksgiving. So Straka putting together a lot of really solid events. That run for him has been fueled by elite irons. It's fueled by a putter that can spike. He's not going to be as rough off the tee as he usually is, with distance being less of a factor. So I think a lot of things line up to make Straka a value 55-1. That's not like a long shot number, but it's a volatile event where long shots can come through. I think if I'm looking at those longer shots, Straka to me is the best guy there. It looks like you're on Straka this week too.
Yeah, I like him outright too, but much more comfortable with a top 10 at plus 450. But again, I've said this before, I like to have a, at least partial unit on the names that I think have value for outrights. And Straka fits that. He's got enough of a ceiling to sort of get things done. He is, I mentioned those like range of outcome numbers. He's a 4.1 with sort of what his ceiling is. That can get it done. And there's also like, take out the data element. If you watch him play, it looks like he just goes on heaters and he can just like find the bottom of the cup. I want that from my golfers, and I don't need to feel it necessarily, but whenever they both align, I like that. So I like Sepp Straka at plus 450. Should I move on?
No, Straka, we're good to go. We're both in. You got the top 10 plus 450. I've got him outright 55-1. I think that the top 10 at plus 450 does make a lot of sense for him too. So I'm on board with you having a bit of exposure in both buckets for Straka there.
So, yeah, let's move on to the non-outrights.
Okay. Who you got there?
A guy who just basically did the opposite of what I talked about. Well, I guess we already moved on to the non-outrights, but just kind of moving on from Straka and the outrights overall. The guy who did not inspire confidence that he was going to go on a run was Corey Connors, who just could not buy a birdie on Sunday. I think he's going to play well again, though, this week. I like him to finish top 20 at plus 230. Just one birdie when he needed some birdies, made it just a stream of pars on Sunday. Finished third by himself, gained strokes across the board, just could not find the bottom of the cup with the putter. And for anyone who's watched Connors, tracked him long term, that's going to be like, oh, it's nothing new. He's not that bad of a putter where we should never expect him to make birdies, but he has a game that should just translate to Sawgrass. He's really accurate, 14th over the last 50 rounds, great ball striker, 20th in that span, good course history, 13th missed cut, 26th, 7th, and 41st in his 5 full events. I know the putter can kind of come and go, etc., but the baseline is that he's one of the best tee to green golfers in the field, coming off of a strong finish. He should be vibing, and I feel like Connors plus 230 to finish top 20 is not that tall of a task.
And like you said, he's one of the guys who does have like decently plus history at TPC Sawgrass, where it's also like the fit is there, like anecdotally the fit's there, but also it's translated to results. We want guys who are good tee to green. Connors will always be that. So I think that makes sense to you. Like Connors, top 10, 5-1, top 20 plus 230 for him, in addition to the Sepp Straka top 10 at plus 450. I got a pair of non-outrights for me this week, both of them top 20s. First one is Aaron Rye, top 20 at plus 240, similar to Henley. This one came through for us last week. That was at plus 210, I believe. So we'll go back to little Rye this week. I mean, again, we were there for a reason with Rye, and it was because the ball striking has been good. He's been okay here, 19th and 35, 19th and 35th across 2 tries at TPC Sawgrass. He's actually finished inside the top 20 in 13 of his past 25 events. And a lot of those are weaker fields than this one for sure. But again, finished 11th last week against a very tough field. Iron's been solid for Rye. Putter has not been bad, as you called back over the summer. I think there's enough here to keep riding Aaron Rye. So I like him at plus 240 for a top 20. Other top 20 I like is Daniel Berger. He's plus 250. And honestly, that surprised Berger's number is longer than Rye's. I like Berger more than Rye personally, so I probably should have put Berger above him, but longer number on Berger. Rough start last week. You alluded to a 78 in the first round. I had used him in a season-long contest and was distraught, but Buddy rallied. He came back, really impressive final 3 rounds for Berger. He actually wound up gaining strokes gained in all 4 categories by the end of the weekend. He's done that now in 4 consecutive events. He finished top 20 in 3 of those as well. Pretty good history for Berger at TPC Sawgrass to dig back in for him before his injuries. So a long time ago, but back in 2022, he was 13th. He was 9th in 2021. So when he played here in the past, Berger was good. Current form getting back there for Berger. So between the two, I like Berger more at plus 250 for a top 20, but I also do like Aaron Rye at plus 240. Any thoughts for you on those 2 guys?
I like both of them from a DFS standpoint. No issues with them for finishing positions either.
Aaron Rye, top 20 plus 240, Daniel Berger plus 250. And then Brandon is on Corey Connors and then also Sepp Straka for his non-outrights for this week. Let's dig in now to the DFS salaries over at FanDuel.com for this week. Brandon, we talked about Scotty a bit before and kind of the game types which you want to go towards him and where you may want to avoid him. How are we feeling about Rory? Because Rory's salary this week checks in at $12,400. You mentioned he is a winner here in the past. Betting odds have been lengthening for Rory. He was 10. He's now 11. When you're getting off of Scotty, because we're not going to be as high in him as we typically are due to the volatility of the event and stuff like that, form being more okay than anything. When you get off of Scotty, are you going to Rory or are you saving more with your top slot there?
It's nothing really against Rory. but it's a little more sort of that I like other names a bit more, which has hurt me recently with Rory. And like, this isn't giving anything away because Data Golf will preview their top 5 most likely winners for the week. They have Scotty at 12.7%, Morikawa at 7.5%, my guy Tommy Fleetwood at 3.9%, our boy Russell Henley 3.6%, and then Rory at 3.2%. I think there's just a general lack of interest right now in Rory. I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm also kind of part of the problem in that sense. So, process wise, am I landing on Rory or Morikawa? Morikawa more. But from a game theory standpoint, if you're telling me that I could just potentially get access to Rory, like, it's not like I don't like him. I just like some other names a bit more. You're holding your head. I don't know what's going on, but
I love Data Golf. I love Data Golf. But if you offered me a Tommy versus Rory head to head, I would take that. Like it, Rory at even money.
yeah,
I'm taking that every day. So I love Data Golf. Full respect to them. I lean on them so much, but I'm taking Rory at even money every day.
I think a lot of it has to do, and this is also this is not just a Data Golf thing. It's a sort of perception thing.
Yeah.
That is with their what their base like.
Yeah.
Actually, I shouldn't say that because it's completely incorrect. Their default is baseline plus course history plus course fit. That's what they want. Like, that's what they show you first. Right. The actual baseline has, and this is not specifically the top 5 because I just have like the public facing one open in an incognito. That has Scotty at 12.7%, Morikawa at 6.1%, Rory at 5.6.
That sounds a lot. Yeah.
Tommy at 3.4 and Henley at 2.5. A lot of this has to do with the perception that, oh, you need accuracy. Yeah. That's not Rory's game.
Right.
I think the hardest thing to do whenever you talk golf is accounting for driving accuracy, because these golfers can pick different clubs. They can try to hit fairways. Some of them, naturally are going to be more accurate than others. I'm not saying Rory becomes the most accurate driver whenever he needs to be, but it's a perception, I think, that this is not the right fit for Rory, and that we need accuracy in irons. Like, that's Russell Henley, that's Morikawa, that's like Fleetwood. Rory's still an amazing golfer. He can win anywhere. He's won here. Like, that's kind of what you're dealing with Rory. So I love that you asked, because if I'm building a head-to-head against you, I'm going Scotty, I'm going Morikawa, I'm looking for Henley and potentially Fleetwood. But you're talking like, okay, I have time for one lineup. I just want to, if I'm right, I want it to be the best possible right. That probably means avoiding Scotty and going to someone like Rory. Or Ludwig was frankly not very good this past week. He did not look like himself, really. If you go like Rory and Ludwig, you're probably getting off to a different start than everyone, especially with Morikawa flexing, almost getting things done. So that's where I'm with Rory. I think it's a differentiation play, but I think he's really fascinating, sort of indicative of what you get in stacked fields, where you're going to see certain names just feel like, hey, are we forgetting about this guy?
Yeah.
And odds are, probably, because you can't play everybody.
Yeah. Also, open invitation to Data Golf. Feel free to rip my NASCAR sims too, because I post those at FanDuel Research now. I have some stupid stuff too. So you have an open invitation to yell at me there, because I respect your work, and just it caught my attention. But you can also do the same to me. Open invitation to give it right back from one person who has difficulty modeling sports. Feel free. I'm okay with that. I understand it.
To clarify, I was just presenting the information. I understand like what they're I think it is, though, indicative of that perception of like how important course fit is and how hard it can be to sort of navigate. And Sawgrass, with the volatility, the different kind of stats that it really elevates, it makes it difficult, because it makes it feel like, okay, you want accuracy, then Scotty shouldn't win, but Scotty happens to be really accurate. Like
Right.
Rory's not, but like he can be. I mean, he can gain fairways. So it's really interesting and really intricate at the top this week.
And I would say of the higher salary guys, Rory is my favorite differentiation piece because of the fact that he can do that stuff. The putter's been really good for him recently too. So like he can gain some upside that way. I think he's interesting for DFS. I would need some more lengthening to bet him. He's at 11. I'm keeping tabs on it, but I'd need more to get there personally. I would need considerable amount more, but I think he's at least intriguing for DFS. So sounds like we're both like meh on the upper range outside of Scotty. Is Morikawa the first guy you feel really good about this week? Because it is for me.
Yeah, and I'll just clarify. Like Rory won at Pebble. Like, I mean, I didn't like him that much because I didn't think it was a great course fit. So I'm guilty of it too. But
he had his per data golf, his driving accuracy was 8 percentage points better than the field average that week. So he can do what he wants to. So yes, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I think other than that, it's no slight to Ludwig. I'm kind of taking this as a look. If Xander haunts me, he haunts me, but he's still working his way back. And he's also, I mean, he's had really sporadic form at Sawgrass. He's basically either finished runner-up, T19, or missed the cut. Those are his 3 results over 6 different events. He's got 2 runners-up, a 19th, and 3 missed cuts. I don't know if it's his favorite course or like the best overall setup for him. We've been on JT, but I think it's Morikawa where I really kind of say, okay, he's the name I would like to get to as my second stud. I won't be alone in that. And again, the caveat here is trying to build the best lineup we can, like the single lineup. I think that's Scotty and Morikawa, which feels kind of wild to have 89.75 for 4 golfers left on average, but you can do it this week if you want to.
Would you consider a world where Morikawa is your highest salary golfer and you go hyper balanced for this week? Or is that sacrificing too much win equity at the top?
Well, there's not as much win equity to me among the top as typical. You see that reflected in the win odds, but also a little bit in my win simulation model. I think if you're just saying, hey, Scotty doesn't win, then yeah. And like the other thing too is we kind of set, like, I think we can all sit back and say, look, API signature event gave us a great Sunday, a lot of big names in the mix. At the end of the day, it was like Morikawa, it was Henley, it was Corey Connors, like Michael Kim, Jason Day. Like it wasn't like it was Morikawa and Scotty and Rory and Ludwig dusting the field and nobody else was there. If we get something like that this week, yeah, balance build makes sense, and I would consider that for sure. With no real problems. So I think he's good enough to sort of hold that mantle this week as the first non-Scotty stud. But it's all cherry picking from there. I think just kind of I would be good starting my lineup really with any name at Morikawa or above, but there's just some I'm probably not going to do it with where it's like Xander or Ludwig.
Yeah.
But I always get Ludwig wrong too. So
yeah, same. I think everyone does at this point, for sure. Okay, so both of Morikawa at 11-1, heavy there, whether he is, most likely the second guy, but also I'm receptive to that making him the top guy. What are we looking at below Morikawa? Let's say between 10K and Morikawa, which golfers are standing out to you in that range?
I would say Tommy Fleetwood at 10-7, which shouldn't be a surprise. But again, Morikawa or Fleetwood betting, it's a cavern between their betting odds. DFS salary, it's find 400 and get to Morikawa. Like that's a pretty easy one. Not going to be there with Burns, not going to be there with Hovland, but then Russell Henley at 10-4, Shane Lowry at 10-2, and Sepp Straka at 10,000 are the 4 names in the 10K range that I like the most.
I have Henley, Lowry, and Straka as well as guys that I like quite a bit. And that's part of why I was intrigued by the idea of starting with Morikawa at 11-1 and kind of going more balanced, because it means I can get all 3 of Henley, Lowry, and Straka in there. I find that pretty interesting just because, like, if I'm going to bet Straka and I'm going to bet Henley, obviously I think those guys can win. Now, can win versus are likely to win is a very different discussion. But I think that if I have 5 single entry lineups, I'll have one that starts with Morikawa and includes those 3 guys as well. It will not be my default build. My default will be Scotty plus Morikawa because there are some guys in the 7K range I like, but I also don't want Michael Kim in every lineup. And I don't want to have, rely on Laurie Cantor and stuff like that in every lineup. So I want to make sure I find ways to differentiate my roster construction so I don't get too heavy on those 7K golfers. And to me, building around that mid-range is a good incentive to do that and get off there. So to me, Henley at 10.4, Lowry 10.2, Straka 10,000, all guys I want to have my rosters this week.
Yeah, and this is not the same number, but if you go Morikawa, Fleetwood, Henley, and Straka, you're getting... Actually, let me do it this way because this might actually work out better. No, it's too much of a difference. All right, so if we go... Boy, my math is terrible if I can't think that that's somewhat accurate. So Morikawa, Fleetwood, Henley, and Straka. That's 4 out of 6 with an average of 8,900 left for 2 golfers. Or you go Scotty and Morikawa for an average of 8,975 for 4 golfers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're paying this. I mean, you're always paying the Scotty tax at this point, but
yeah,
I do think that there's an appeal to that. The biggest problem is there's enough volatility where this isn't like you just need your guys to make the cut. There's no guarantee anyone's making the cut this week other than really Scotty, it feels like, and that's not even a guarantee. So I like it, but I think the volatility angle is enough where I still prefer Scotty and Morikawa to start and take a chance on someone else, but that is a really nice start.
Okay, so I think that is at least intriguing for sure, but I agree with you that's not the preferred builds. Let's go to the 9K range. I feel like there's a pretty big drop-off after Straka. Personally, at $10,000. Like the guys in the upper 9 range don't do a lot for me. I do like Daniel Berger at 97. Honestly, though, he's only the guy I feel like decent about. Berger, I think, to me, is like a solid play at 97. And I do like him, but do you have a different vibe on the upper 9K range this week, or do you agree there's a pretty big fall off after Straka at 10K?
I think Keegan at 99 and Corey Connors at 99 are in the same tier as Berger, honestly.
Are they in the same tier as Straka?
I think they're close, but they'd be at the bottom. I think I'd go Straka, Berger, Connors. Well, actually, no. I'd go Straka, Connors, Berger, Keegan, and then I feel like it drops off after Berger, to be honest.
That makes sense. I can get behind that. I'm a little bit lower on Connors, I guess. I do like him, and I think that where you got him from a betting perspective makes sense. I think I'd rather bet him than play him in DFS personally. Maybe I'm just too high on Berger. I don't know. But I think that the main thing for me is a little bit lower on Connors, and that's leading to my on the upper 9K range this week.
Yeah, I feel like the below Daniel Berger until I get to really Aaron Rye at 88. I don't see myself playing much of anyone. You get Brian Harman.
Only the guy I had notes on the range is Robert McIntyre, Big Shot Bob at 91. Like that's it. So I agree that it's like that 9K range this week is a lot weaker than it usually is in my eyes in general.
Yeah, and I know he's got the Big Shot Bob moniker, but he is a lot more accurate than he is long off the tee. So he's a good solid course fit. Good iron, like solid iron player. Not the best long-term putter, but kind of spikes. So don't hate it. But like you said, that's not really where I envision living this week. And I'd rather save some salary, get into that upper and mid 8K range, or consider those names in the 7K range. So who do you in the 8,000 range is popping?
You mentioned Aaron Rye. I agree. He's probably my favorite guy below 9,000 this week. $8,800. The appeal for him pretty obvious. If I like him for a top 20, and like again, his odds for a top 20 are shorter than Berger's, and Berger's salary is almost $1,000 higher than Aaron Rye's. I should like Aaron Rye at $8,800. He keeps doing it against like better and better fields. Again, finishing pretty well in the API last week in a signature event. He's a good fit, I think, for TPC Sawgrass as well. Been here twice, made the cut both times, top 35 both times, one top 20 in there. I think that $8,800 to me is a very fair salary for him. So Rye is my favorite guy below 9K. Is that kind of the same for you?
Yeah, he's close to it, if not my
Okay.
favorite. Nick Taylor, I would say, is in that conversation as well. But Rye does everything you're asking for. I think the ceiling is just higher for Nick Taylor,
Yeah.
but a little less of a, not that there's anything such as safety, but his irons are so hot right now. He's really accurate off the tee. He can get the putter flowing for sure. So maybe Nick Taylor at 86, but Aaron Rye at 88. Maybe a little more likely to listen to the betting odds and just go with Rye. But Nick Taylor, I think, deserves some attention. Don't mind JJ Spawn at 88 as well. Justin Rose at 85, but definitely more tournament plays than cash game plays. And I think I kind of tap out there in the 8K range. Anyone else to you with an 8 in front of their salary drawing your attention?
Just Denny McCarthy. 82. 18th last week, despite losing almost 4 strokes around the greens. Always hard to predict how things will do with the wedges. That's not going to be a stat that stabilizes very quickly, so I don't really care about that. And the fact that he still finished 18th despite that, to me, is pretty impressive. Distance won't hurt McCarthy as much this week as usual. He's about neutral from a distance perspective. He's made the cut here in all 5 tries, which is rare. I think there are like 5 guys in the field who have never missed a cut here, who have played it a certain number of times. So, I'll take that 82 for McCarthy. I think that makes sense to me. He's the only other guy I liked besides Ryan, the 8K range. I don't mind Taylor. I don't mind Taylor. I think it would just be him primarily, but I think that McCarthy's solid at 82.
Yeah, I don't mind either of the Højgaard twins. Nikolai's irons right now are better. They're 84 and 81 respectively, with Nikolai a little bit lower salaried there. But I think it's mostly Michael Kim at 77, Laurie Cantor at 74, and Alex Smalley at 77, who I might just prefer a little bit. But if I had to pick, again, any other names in the 8K range, I think I'd go with Nikolai over McCarthy.
Okay.
Just due to an upside standpoint. But Danny McCarthy just is, he's got to get tired of proving the haters wrong, honestly, at this point, right? Like, just going out making cuts, playing good golf, even though he's never an ideal course fit. He makes me want to practice my putting so I can play as well as he does, honestly. Yeah. So shout out to Denny. But how are you feeling about things in the 7K range?
Yeah, mostly Michael Kim, the guy who stands out to me there, just because the form has been so good against every different field type, a lot of different field or course types as well. He's been good. It allows me to get to Scheffler with Morikawa, which is pretty appealing. You mentioned the upper 8 range on average. If you go with Scheffler plus Morikawa, Michael Kim changes that math pretty quickly, especially if you go with an Aaron Rye or a Robert McIntyre in there too. It allows you to get back in that mid range. So Kim, I think, is just really undersalaried. So I'm going to have Scheffler in my head against you. I'm going to have Michael Kim, and I'm going to have Morikawa. It's those other 3 golfers, I think, that will decide who wins this week. So I feel like we'll probably both have all 3 of those guys in our head-to-head this week. Maybe not Kim for you, I don't know. But I do feel like it'll be at most a 3v3.
Yeah, I think Kim is pretty much locked in there. Just because he's the most undersalaried value golfer by a pretty big margin, in my opinion.
Okay. Who are your DFS loves for this week?
Scotty, Morikawa, Henley. Considering going Straka there and then Michael Kim.
Okay. I'm going to go Michael Kim too. I'm going to go Morikawa. I like Scotty. He's a strong I think he's more of a love out of obligation than anything, but I think the Morikawa is more the love. Mm-hmm. I love Henley. I love Straka, I think, actually, too. And then I really like Ryan. He's a borderline love for me, too, $8,800. So I'll put Scheffler in there just because I had the flexibility to get there from Kim. Morikawa, Henley, Straka, Rye, Kim are going to be my loves for this week. Let's finish up with win picks. And old Russell Henley got me on the board last week, I believe 44-1. So we finally have someone on the board here. Now you got to make up some ground across the rest of this year. And it's a long season. Got a lot of time to get there. You could very easily erase that this week, given how many viable non-short options there are. You get to pick first. I didn't even check bobblehead for the weekend because Taylor Pendrith stabbing me directly in the heart once again. At some point, you'd think I learn, but it'll take a while still. So, do you want to pick first and fourth or second and third for win picks this week?
I will go first, and I'll take Henley.
Okay, that makes sense. Henley 35 is your first win pick. I'm going to take Straka 55 as my first. And then, if I'm thinking about another golfer I like, I'm struggling in that regard. Honestly, I'm going to go Berger again, 65-1. I know I went him somewhat recently, but the number's still pretty long. I think that's a good number for someone who's playing really good golf right now. So, and again, decent course history if you look back to his pre-injury numbers of TPC subs. So, Berger 65, Straka 55, my two picks for this week. Who are you going with in addition to Henley at 35?
I'm not panicking. I'm not flinching. Not trying to chase anything right now. I'm going with Tommy Fleetwood at 30. If I get Tommy this week or Henley, I'm right back in it. Then I just need like anything. Not going overboard just yet.
All righty. That's going to wrap things up for this week here on Heat Check. Brandon, any final thoughts for you before we close up shop for this week?
I say it pretty much every week, but there really aren't too many. This could go a lot of ways, quite like this week for the players. The TPC Sawgrass water ball can end it for even the best runs on Sunday, can kill someone's round on Thursday. So if you see something you like, I think this is a great week to go there. But for me, I still think that there are some of the bigger names at the top of the board in good form. I think that includes Russell Henley. I think that includes Morikawa. And I think that they are... I don't think I would be surprised if they're kind of in contention again on Sunday by any means, but boy, I'm really feeling good about Tommy Fleetwood, even though you think he can't get it done.
I never said that, and I never would. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets and your DFS lineups for the Players' Championship. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.